Welcome, Mayor Bowser. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on this very important occasion for the Office of Human Rights. OHR is a district civil rights enforcement agency and the home of the Commission on Human Rights as well. I'm very proud to serve as this agency's director and to welcome each of you today on behalf of my amazing team. A team that includes intake officers, investigators, administrative specialists. We have a very strong legal unit, and I can't forget our mediators, our policy and communications specialists, and my operations team. They're all here. Let's give them a round of applause. As you know, the number of statutes that OHR enforces has grown over the last 2 years. We now enforce the Fair Criminal Record Screening Act, commonly known as the Ban the Box law in the district, a law that offers very important protections for returning citizens. Yes. And we also play a vital role in enforcing laws that protect women at work who are pregnant and who are breastfeeding. And as a result of these new laws, our caseload is steadily climbing. We went from just over 500 docketed cases in FY14 to 1,075 in FY15. And I'm also confident that the public trust is increasing in our office and our government, and this draws people to our agency when they feel their civil rights have been violated. So as you will see today when you tour our beautifully renovated space, we now have 5 dedicated intake and consultation rooms, 2 dedicated mediation rooms, 24 new workstations, some of which had to be moved out of the way to make space for you today, for our law clerks and interns, and 8 new offices for full-time staff. And I have to take this opportunity to thank the Department of General Services and the architects at iStudio for not only improving the functionality of our space and moving walls around, but for taking the time to understand our work and to make the needed changes so that we could work more efficiently. Also, before we start our program, I want to take a moment to pay respect to civil rights legend and leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we will commemorate next Monday. It is because of his belief in due process, his work for justice, and his vision of racial equity that we get to do the work we do every day in the district and in our office. He made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of all of us, and we humbly work to answer his call to service every day when we open our doors. I will now invite up to the podium Director Lucinda Babers of the Department of Motor Vehicles, who will introduce our next speaker.
How's everybody doing on National Human Trafficking Awareness Day? Good. We're doing good? All right. And I just want to give kudos to Director Palacio and the Department of General Services, represented by Jonathan Kane, for this fabulous space. If you didn't have time to do your walkthrough, take your tour, please do that. Now, many people are saying, why in the world is the Department of Motor Vehicles involved in a human trafficking event? Well, that is because we need everybody's help. Can't just do it alone. And so we actually, for FY16, have several initiatives that we're going to be doing to help promote human trafficking in our agency and in the district. And Mayor Bowser, as you will hear later, is committed to everyone coming together to help combat this horrific crime. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing Muriel Odom. Ombudsman Odom, she is the ombudsman for the Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services. She is also the chair of the Department of Homeland Security's Blue Campaign, and you're going to hear from her, but I just want to share she has dedicated her life to immigration issues. She was the executive director for the Catholic Legal Immigration Network, which is referred to as Clinic. Now, that is the country's largest network of charitable legal immigration programs. Before that, she worked in private practice, where she once again addressed immigration issues. She was the Assistant District Counsel for the Immigration and Naturalization Services. And once again, as I said, and this is just worth saying it again, Ombudsman Odom is in fact the current chair of Blue Campaign. That is why she's with us today, to help celebrate National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Ombudsman Muriel Odom.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Lucinda, for the kind introduction. I am delighted to be here. Thank you for your hard work in pulling this event together. I want to thank the DC Office of Human Rights and Director Palacio, as well as our Blue Campaign team, somewhere here in the room, for their hard work in making this happen today. It is also a pleasure to be in your brand new space. It is beautiful, and we are looking forward to working with you. Mayor Bowser, it is an honor to stand alongside you today. On behalf of the Department of Homeland Security, please know that we are incredibly grateful to call the District of Columbia a partner in the fight to end human trafficking. So thank you to your city, to you, to your staff for the warm welcome. We're looking forward to this partnership. My name is Muriel Odom, as you heard, and I am the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman for the department, but it is also my distinct privilege to serve as the chair of the DHS Blue Campaign, which is the unified voice for the department's efforts to combat human trafficking. As many of you know, I assume you're here because you care deeply about this issue, human traffickers prey on the vulnerable people in our communities. Some are searching for a home they never had. Some are searching for love. Some are tired of struggling and are searching for a better life. There are many vulnerabilities that lead people into the hands of traffickers. They're all easy targets to those who profit from modern-day slavery. So now more than ever, I want to start by saying we must be committed to addressing and minimizing those vulnerabilities that lead our people into the hands of traffickers. And we must hold everyone involved accountable for this crime. Every day, the Department of Homeland Security works to combat human trafficking. How do we do that? We do it in our nation's airports, along our nation's borders, in the aftermath of a disaster, and in the administration of our immigration laws. DHS employees recognize and report instances of human trafficking in the course of their daily duties. Our law enforcement component, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security investigation, also investigates domestic and international cases of human trafficking, and they support victims through a victim assistance program that we're very proud of. We do so that victims of this heinous crime can have access to the services that they need for a safe and a stable recovery. So in doing so, DHS uses a victim-centered approach to combat human trafficking, making the needs of the victim a top priority in our human trafficking investigations. So why is a partnership like this so important? And that is for a few reasons. There are many, but let me name a few. First, because human trafficking happens not just here in the United States, but here in our capital city, which many of us call home. It happens here. Second, because victims of human trafficking rarely self-report. They may be fearful of law enforcement, they may be fearful of retribution from their traffickers, or they may not even know that what is happening to them is illegal. Third, because 20 million people visited Washington, D.C. last year. So with your help, we hope that this important message will reach not just our DC community, but also visitors from all over the world who come to our wonderful city. Finally, a partnership like this is important because not a single organization, institution, government agency, whether it's federal, state, or local, not a single institution can fight human trafficking alone. You mentioned that earlier, Lucinda, and we believe that at the very core, at the very heart of what we do. So when it comes to human trafficking, none of us is as good as all of us. So we are very excited to be here. We need to engage a whole of community, and cops on the street need to know how to recognize signs of human trafficking, but so do bus drivers and hotel clerks, Metro Police, school resource officers, neighbors, and also parents. That's why the Blue Campaign exists and why we're so passionate about our work. For over 5 years, the Blue Campaign has helped support community efforts to raise public consciousness of human trafficking and to provide training to community partners, both federal, state, and local. And this community has been a leader in this work at both the governmental and the non-governmental levels. Today's announcement means that we will work alongside the District of Columbia to continue to empower individuals, families, and our community to recognize and report human trafficking. It means that we will assist with law enforcement training on human trafficking. It means that all the tools that we have created, along with many resources that we have now available at the Blue Campaign, are yours for you to use. Finally, it means that we are here to support you. The District of Columbia has been fiercely committed to combating human trafficking for many years. There are great folks in this community working to serve victims and to combat this crime, and the Blue Campaign is very proud to join you. Today is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and what an opportune moment to say to our community's most vulnerable individuals that we have your back and that we are all here to do our part. Mayor Bowser, thank you again for your leadership and your commitment to ending human trafficking here in the District of Columbia and in our nation. And the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is very honored to call you all our partner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Odom and Director Babers. I now have the honor of introducing our mayor this morning. Not only is Mayor Muriel Bowser a champion for all the vulnerable populations OHR explicitly seeks to serve, but she is also a leader who has taken a stand for all district residents in all 8 wards, leaving no one behind. She is bringing us safer communities for all families, better schools for all children, and better services for each one of us. There is no doubt that she's committed to the mission of OHR, and without her unwavering support, there's simply no way we could do all the work we need to do to ensure that every district's civil rights are protected. So now, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Muriel Bowser.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am very happy to be here at our brand new DC Office of Human Rights. Let's hear it for our wonderful staff. I don't hear it for our wonderful staff. And Director Palacio, we want to congratulate you on your leadership. There is some significantly important work going on here, and as you've noted, it's more work happening because of the responsibilities that we've given you. You know, and Maria, you will know this as well, we're very proud of the human rights law here in the District of Columbia, probably more expansive than any jurisdiction around, and we're fiercely protective about making sure not only do we have a law in the books, but that we enforce that law. And that's what the people here in this office, I'm going to hear it for them again. Let's hear it for the Office of Human Rights. And so you know that this building, she's probably past middle age by now. What do you think? And from time to time, we have to go in floor by floor to make sure we're updating space. And there are probably some other agencies in this building that are going to see this floor, and we'll have some more customers for Jonathan Kane and the Department of General Services. But let's thank them for the work that they did at DGS. So I understand they got started in August, and now everybody is working in some pretty, I like it, actually, updated space, and that works for us as well. I'm happy to hear that the DMV is the Department of Motor Vehicles, that is involved in this project as well, because indeed many folks who have been in Washington in a long time, who are new to Washington from every background, go into the DMV every day, and it's an excellent opportunity for us to help fight discrimination. And so I couldn't be more happy happy that Director Palacio has signed on to this campaign on our behalf. I was happy when the department was really out talking about a campaign that I think I want to keep seeing, right? It was the End of Awkward that talked about some very important work that the Human Rights Office does. I'm always happy when I hear employers who are getting presentations from our office about banning the box and making sure we're putting more people on the pathway to the middle class. And this is another example of what we can do here together. It is interesting to talk about a Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Because frequently I have occasion to say, I want to put that part of your work, Ms. Odom, we want to put that out of business, don't we? We want so many people to be aware of vulnerable communities and how each one of us can play a part in protecting people. I know that's what our Deputy Mayor for Public and Safety and Justice wants, and Kevin Donahue is here, and I want to thank you for being here, Kevin, and all the work that you do, because this is a critical part of what we do. OHR has a focus, as we've discussed, on protecting returning citizens and making sure we're creating a pathway, on focusing on making sure transgendered people in the District of Columbia aren't discriminated against, to make sure women who are in the workplace, in our nursing, coming back to work, are protected, and for immigrants in our communities to make sure that they understand their rights and aren't being discriminated against. We feel very strongly that no matter who you are or where you're from in this city, we're going to stand with you, and you're going to have every opportunity to achieve the American dream right in your nation's capital. So with the marking of Human Trafficking Day, Awareness Day, we pay special attention to this criminal enterprise fueled by labor and sexual exploitation. It victimizes men and women of all ages and of all colors. And since 2007, there have been 486 reported cases of human trafficking in our city. Sometimes it's an immigration issue, and sometimes it's a socioeconomic issue. But fundamentally, we believe it's a human rights issue. We know our city is better than this, and we know that when we put our minds together and we focus on our neighbors, that we can help put an end to it. For more than a decade, MPD Narcotics and Special Investigations Division has been committed to this fight as well. In the last 9 months, we identified prostitution rings resulting in more than 170 arrest, and that's good work, and we want to thank the men and women of our police department for that hard work. But as long as there are people who need our help, we will commit to doing more, and we are pleased to sign on with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and I know, Maria, you will send my greetings to Secretary Johnson, who is a great friend of the district, and we will sign on as your partner. And I want to thank you, too, for the hard work that you've done in coming to our beautiful new office space. So you heard from Director Babers that we will play these PSAs in our DMV centers, and there may be other agencies who will sign on as well. We know that the Human Rights Office will also put up advertisements throughout the city to hit the population that you talked about, Ms. Odom. And sometimes we forget, not only does our population swell to over 1 million a day with our residents and commuters, but the many, many people who come from around our nation to visit. And it grows every day, actually. And you can report information. And I want to say the number and repeat it so that people know where you can go if you suspect human trafficking. And it will also give you information so you know what to look for. The number is 1-888-373-7888. 1-888-373-7888. 88. So the more information we have, the quicker we can get folks off the streets who are victimizing our communities and the most vulnerable among us. So what we'll do now is we're going to sign the MOU that will commit us to the Blue campaign. We're going to take a quick walk around our new facility. I think we're actually going to cut a ribbon. And then I think that we'll take some general questions right back here.
At this time, the mayor and Ms. Odom are signing an MOU between the district and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So if you'll bear with us.
Excellent. We're committed to
Great, thank you. All right. The mayor has also graciously agreed to join us for our ribbon cutting. So our staff will direct you back to the front, and we'll join you there so that we can bring out the big scissors and cut the ribbon.
2, 3.
All right.
Very good. All right.
So much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So we're going to walk back and take some questions.
Okay.
We may have the ombudsman for a couple of minutes. I know that she has some another engagement, so why don't we start there? Yes.
Everybody, happy New Year. Tom Fitzgerald from Fox 5. Unfortunately, a lot of football fans had a disappointing afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, we want to see if we can make them feel a little bit better today.
Okay.
And this
What
is
did
all.
you have in mind?
Let me think.
Okay.
As you know, there's been much discussion about where the team will eventually wind up. I don't expect you're going to announce anything in the next 30 seconds. But let me ask you anyway, is there any update or anything you could tell football fans in Washington about what your preference would be, where this team would play, if there's anything actively in the works to bring them home? What can you tell them?
Sure.
What should they chew on for this offseason?
Well, I think there's no surprise here that I think Washington should play in Washington, and that's what I think. And I actually think we also have the best location. So in my hour-long ride to FedEx Field, and as I watch fans leave the game early because they had long ways to go to get there, I'm reminded of the great infrastructure that we have in Washington to support NFL Stadium and the associated uses that could surround a new stadium. I was also reminded of how successful our team was at RFK. You remember we were Super Bowl champions of the world. So I think that our focus has been to make sure, first and foremost, that the interests of residents of the district are protected. Here's the deal. We're building a soccer stadium. Our soccer team is going to be playing there in 2018. And after that, we're going to have an empty RFK stadium. So my charge as mayor is to make sure that we have a plan for RFK by that time. So Events DC is working on several scenarios. One will include an NFL stadium and the others won't. And so we're going to prepare to make the best decision for Washington, DC. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
WMAL. Did you say that the
Ms. Odom?
yeah, is she leaving soon?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you mind giving me some numbers on demographics? Who in the local area does human trafficking affect most?
We don't have the data specific to Washington, D.C. at our fingertips. In fact, the data piece, as you may know, if you've researched this issue, it's a challenge because of the number of state and local ordinances and statutes across the country that deal with human trafficking and the fact that some of those arrests are not prosecuted as human trafficking in our community. So we're working on the data piece. Hopefully, over the next year, DHS can contribute to the data piece and is able to speak more accurately on the numbers.
Cover this issue. There's always some people seem to be surprised that human trafficking is in fact an issue in such a wealthy part of the country. Can you address that?
It's shocking because we don't know what it looks like, and I think we all have our awakening when we find out more about what it looks like in our communities. There may not be chains involved, right? We are not looking at slavery in the same way as we looked at slavery many years ago. We're looking at a tremendously large criminal enterprise that is very profitable and that uses people as commodities right in front of our very eyes, whether it's the commercial sex trade and the treatment of young girls as prostitutes as opposed to what they are under the law, victims of sex trafficking, as well as learning to discern the differences between wage and labor violations and enforced labor. So we're all learning what it looks like now. At the federal level, we're working together to help to identify it in our respective mission spaces. It's complicated, but I think the average American who learns about human trafficking has a hard time walking away from it. It looks differently. It takes a little time for us to zoom in and recognize it, but once you recognize it, I think it's really important to know where to report it. And I think we're moving the needle there.
Both the mayor and Ms. Odom, I have a question. Some recently organizations representing the LGBT community have signed on to a declaration of Amnesty International in August, which called for decriminalization of sex work unrelated to trafficking on grounds that it violates the human rights of sex workers, but also they claimed that it hinders the ability to apprehend and to prosecute trafficking because it complicates the lives of those who are forced into prostitution, as well as those who are not involved in trafficking. So my question to you is, what they were calling for is either the decriminalization or deprioritization of enforcement of forced sex work in local municipalities. Do you think that's something that would be considered, or is that off the wall in your view, both the mayor and Ms. Odom?
I'm happy to.
Okay,
You're welcome.
I'll let you start.
Sure. So, well, you've hit one of the two biggest issues for us to grapple with, and I see some of our staff going, "Oh, tough question." Why is it a tough question? Because the decriminalization of sex work, along with the demand side of the house, are two issues that we're learning about from our stakeholders and from victim service providers. We want to make sure that our approach is aligned with what they think would work in the communities, and I'm not sure we're ready to give you an answer on that. Those are two questions, I think, for the DHS, but also for our state and local partners to grapple with. What do we do about the demand and the people who are, buying sex, especially from minors, and what do we do about the deprioritization of sex offenses? I don't have the answer for you, but those are two of our biggest challenges this year.
And sure, and for Lou, what I have really challenged my team is to make sure there are opportunities for people so that they find avenues for productive work, because that's what people ask me about. They don't say, "Hey, I want to do more sex work." They say, "I don't want to be discriminated against in the workplace. I want to be able to use my skills to find a good paying job, and I want to be able to afford to live right here in Washington, D.C." And also what I hear in communities is they don't want to, people in some neighborhoods seeing people being exploited day in and day out in neighborhoods across the District of Columbia. And that's just not what I've been charged to do. I've been charged to make sure that people have productive ways to work and be able to afford to live here in a life-sustaining way. Okay, any other questions? And I'll come back to you. Okay, is this from Ms. Odom? Okay, yes.
How will the Blue Campaign partnership, you said that you already have been working on this, you have resources, and I'm sorry, Maria.
Ms. Odom.
Ms. Odom, thank you. Said,
she's the ombudsman for the Department of Homeland Security.
Lots of O's, lots of B's. She said that our resources are your resources in fighting this. So how specifically will DC use those resources?
Well, why don't I turn to Director Palacio, who's really been working hard to make sure we're leveraging the things that we already do with a pretty robust operation here at OHR and tie into the campaign.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you can see to my left behind Ms. Odom, we already have access to wonderful posters and educational materials that we can use as needed with the district's logo and the mayor's logo so that people understand that this is an issue we're fighting for in the district. There are training resources that are available. We're going to explore with Chief Lanier and the MPD what type of training is already being done. OHR certainly wouldn't dictate to the Metropolitan Police Department, but we're going to sit down at the table and figure out what training has been done and what training through the Blue Campaign can further expand our efforts in the district. So those are two very concrete steps, but we also have the Department of Motor Vehicle and other agencies like DHS that need to come around and sit and figure out how do we reach everyone and work together on the issue.
All right.
Any more press questions? Any questions?
Yes, sir. What's your name?
I'd like to go, Harold Wong. I'm here because of my interest in human trafficking through the Rotary Club, working on a project in Thailand and Laos. My question goes back to data. The Economic and Social Council Action Group points out the lack of data is a real handicap in knowing how to address these issues. And we just really don't know what the situation is. So my question is, how high a priority is it to collect data in this region and also nationally and internationally? It should be very high on the list.
It is a priority. I represent DHS in the Senior Policy Operating Group that supports the President's Task Force on Human Trafficking. It is of the highest priority. At DHS, we have focused over the past few years in learning to, what data is available to us, what data is limited, where are we limiting the use of data when there are privacy concerns or other legislation that prohibits us from using the data. I think for us, through the Human Smuggling and Trafficking Center and the interagency partners, it's a priority to figure out how we overcome the challenges that we have in scrubbing and putting forward data that is timely, is scrubbed, right? That it is clear, that overcomes law enforcement sensitive limitations and privacy limitations. So I know that we're working on it. I can't promise, a timeline for the delivery of an assessment that is a national assessment that offers us information that is accurate, timely, anytime, soon, but I know that this is a priority, and I know that our leadership has charged our components to be part of the interagency dialogue here. It keeps us from doing the best work that we can in this area. I would like very much to have the best data available, so I know where to take our campaign, I know where to take our trainings, and I know, we know where to put resources into victim services. So we're all relying on this work moving forward.
Following up, I just want to make sure that you guys have had a chance to say clearly. So what is the district approach now if someone does report a sex worker crime? How is that handled right now?
Well, it's handled through MPD, and they do an investigation. And I don't know what the coordination with human rights is. So let me ask Monica to talk about the MPD coordination with human rights.
Yes. We don't have access to the cases at MPD, but there's a hotline at the Office of Victim Services that's a very important resource that people don't know about. So that is the primary way that we're going to be involved and that we're going to coordinate efforts between agencies. There's an important hotline. There are resources and community organizations available to victims of human trafficking, and we want everyone to know about that. That's our first step. We're really kind of in phase one of expanding our efforts. So that's where we are.
Okay, last question.
Okay, just a quick question.
Yes.
About sex workers. Is it really ever voluntary?
I don't think so.
Neither do I.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.